Daniel Cooper was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alarm started screaming. He spilled the hot liquid across his keyboard and jumped to his feet. Every screen in the communications center turned red at the same moment. He had worked at the United Earth Defense Network for 7 years, and he had never seen anything like this. "What is happening?" he shouted across the room. A young technician named Peter looked up from his station with fear in his eyes. "Sir, we have contacts near Jupiter. Many contacts." Daniel ran to the main display. The screen showed a cloud of red dots emerging from what looked like a tear in space itself. He counted quickly, then stopped counting because the numbers made no sense. There were thousands of ships coming through, 12,000, maybe more. Each one was larger than anything Earth had ever built. "Get me Secretary General Mitchell," Daniel said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "Right now." In Geneva, Laura Mitchell was meeting with her advisors when her assistant burst through the door. She was a tall woman with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many crises. But when she looked at the images being transmitted from Jupiter, even she went pale. "How many ships?" she asked quietly. "Over 12,000 confirmed," said Commander Price. He was the head of Earth's orbital defense fleet, a man who had spent his entire life preparing for war, but not this kind of war. "They are holding position near Jupiter's moons. They have not moved toward Earth yet." Laura sat down slowly. "And how many ships do we have?" Swallowed hard. 800, if we count everything. Patrol ships, cargo vessels converted for combat training craft. 800 against 12,000. The room went silent. Everyone understood what those numbers meant. Earth could not win this fight, not even close. Then the message came. Every screen on Earth, every radio, every communication device suddenly showed the same image. A tall creature with dark purple skin and 4 arms stood before a background of stars. Its eyes were completely black, and when it spoke, the words were translated into perfect English. "I am Archon Al, Supreme Commander of the Dominion. We have conquered 217 worlds across this galaxy. Every species that has faced us has submitted. None have survived resistance." The creature paused, letting the words sink in. "You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Your leaders will present themselves to us for judgment. Your military forces will stand down. Your world will become part of the Dominion. If you refuse, we will reduce your planet to ash. Every city, every town, every living thing, you have 72 hours." The transmission ended. Daniel stood frozen at his station. Around him, people were crying, praying, or simply staring at nothing. He forced himself to breathe and think. There had to be something, some option nobody had considered. He began scanning the communications. They were using encryption, but it was not designed to stop Earth technology. It was designed to stop other species they had encountered. Daniel realized they did not consider humanity a real threat. They were not even bothering to hide their internal messages properly. He spent hours listening and translating. Most of it was standard military communication. Fleet positions, supply reports, crew rotations. But then he found something interesting. A conversation between 2 officers mentioned something strange. They were talking about the last time an armada this large had been assembled, 6,000 years ago, against a species called the... "They were not even a military threat," one officer said. "But the fleet, nobody knows why. Nobody is allowed to ask." "Do not speak of them," the other officer replied quickly. "That name is forbidden. You know the punishment." Daniel leaned forward. A species had made the withdrawal without fighting. 6,000 years ago, and they were still afraid to even say the name. How was that possible? He saved the recording and kept searching. In Geneva, the United Earth Council was meeting in emergency session. Leaders from every nation sat around the great circular table, their faces showing fear, anger, and despair in equal measure. "We must fight," said one general. "We cannot simply surrender. Better to die free than live as slaves." "And accomplish what?" asked another voice. "They will kill us all anyway. At least if we surrender, some of us might survive." Laura Mitchell listened to the arguments going back and forth. She had already made her decision, but she needed the council to reach it themselves. "There may be another option," she said finally. The room went quiet. "We do not know everything about we do not know their weaknesses, their fears, their history. Before we choose between hopeless war and slavery, I want to know if there is something else, something we have not considered." She looked around the table. "I am authorizing a special research team. They will have access to every resource we possess, every alien database, every artifact, every piece of information humanity has collected about the universe beyond our solar system. If there is a third option, they will find it." Commander Price nodded slowly. "And the fleet?" "Prepare for battle," Laura said. "But do not engage, not yet. We have 72 hours. Let us use every second of them." Back at the communications center, Daniel was still searching through intercepted transmissions when his supervisor approached him. "Cooper, you have been reassigned," she said. "Secretary General's orders. You are joining a special research team. Something about alien communications and history." Daniel looked up. "What team?" "I do not know the details, but they are sending a transport for you in 1 hour. Whatever you found in those transmissions, someone important noticed." Daniel thought about the forbidden name. A species that had somehow frightened the most powerful empire in the galaxy into retreating without a fight. If he could discover what they knew, what they did, maybe humanity could do the same. He grabbed his data files and headed for the door. Earth had 72 hours, and somewhere in the vast darkness of space, there was a secret that could save them all. He just had to find it. The research facility was located deep beneath the Swiss mountains. Daniel had never been inside before, though he had heard rumors about it. This was where Earth kept its most valuable alien artifacts. Things discovered on Mars, Europa, and the outer moons. Things humanity did not fully understand. A woman was waiting for him at the entrance. She had short brown hair and wore glasses that seemed too large for her face. Her name tag read Doctor, and she extended her hand with a tired smile. "You must be Daniel Cooper," she said. "I heard your transmission intercepts. Though that name has not appeared in any database for centuries, how did you find it?" "The officers were talking about them," Daniel explained. "They seemed afraid of something that happened 6,000 years ago." Nodded and led him inside. The facility was massive, with endless corridors filled with sealed containers and computer terminals. Scientists moved quietly between stations, their faces tense with urgency. "I am an historian," said as they walked. "I have spent 20 years studying the languages and cultures of extinct alien civilizations. When your report came in, I knew immediately this was important." "What do you know about Daniel asked. "Almost nothing. That is what makes them interesting." Stopped at a large door and placed her hand on the scanner. "They have conquered hundreds of worlds. They keep detailed records of every species they have defeated. Names, histories, technologies, everything. Except The door opened into a vast room filled with floating holographic displays. Each one showed alien text, images, and star maps. "They have been completely erased from records," continued. "That takes enormous effort. It means they are not just hiding information. They are actively destroying any mention of them across their entire empire. Why would they do that?" Daniel thought about it. "Because they are afraid others will learn what they knew." "Exactly." Walked to a central console and began typing. 6,000 years ago, they assembled their largest fleet ever. They went to conquer and then they left, without firing a single shot. No battle, no destruction, just retreat. How is that possible? I have a theory. Pulled up an ancient star map. They were not warriors, they were historians, philosophers. They spent thousands of years traveling the galaxy and documenting everything they found. Every empire, every civilization, every secret. Daniel began to understand. They knew something about something dangerous. They sent a single message before they attacked, said. We do not know what it contained, but it was enough to make the entire Armada withdraw and never return. Whatever they knew, it was more powerful than any weapon. Meanwhile, in orbit around Jupiter, Admiral George Canton stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was an old man who had fought in 3 wars and won them all, but he had never faced odds like these. Through the viewport, he could see the fleet. It stretched across space like a wall of darkness. Each ship was beautiful in a terrible way, all sharp angles and glowing weapons. His own fleet looked like toys in comparison. Admiral, the Secretary General is calling, his communications officer reported. Laura Mitchell's face appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted but determined. George, I need you to hold position, she said. No engagement, no provocation. We are working on something. Working on what? Canton asked. Miracles. Maybe. We found something in the old archives, a name they are afraid of. We are following the trail now. Canton shook his head slowly. Laura, we have 48 hours left. Even if you find something, will it matter? Those ships out there can destroy us in minutes. That is why I need you to buy us time. Keep them talking, keep them waiting. Every hour matters now. Canton sighed and nodded. I will do what I can, but I want you to know something. If we have to fight, my crews will not run. We will make them remember us. Laura smiled sadly. I know, George, I know. Back in the research facility, had found something. Her eyes were wide as she stared at the display in front of her. Daniel, come look at this. He hurried over and saw ancient text scrolling across the screen. It was written in a language he did not recognize, but the translation appeared alongside it. This is from an alien relay station on Europa, explained. It contains records from dozens of extinct species, including fragments from themselves. What does it say? Read slowly. The truth is the greatest weapon. Empires built on lies cannot survive the light. We have gathered the evidence. We have documented the deception. And when they come for us, we will speak the truth that destroys them. Daniel felt his heart beating faster. They had proof of something that could not allow anyone to know. The relay station on Europa has more records, said. Physical records, data crystals that have never been fully analyzed. If they left anything behind, it might be there. Daniel grabbed his jacket. Then we need to go to Europa, now. Hesitated. It is a 12-hour journey. By the time we get there and back, we will have barely any time left. Do we have another choice? She looked at the ancient words on the screen, the promise of truth that could destroy an empire. Then she shook her head. No, we do not. They ran toward the transport bay. Somewhere in the cold darkness of Europa, the key to saving Earth was waiting. They just had to reach it in time. The transport ship cut through the darkness of space at maximum speed. Lieutenant Shaw was the pilot, a young man with steady hands and calm eyes. He had been told nothing about the mission except that it was the most important flight of his life. We will reach Europa in 6 hours, said over his shoulder. I pushed the engines harder than I should have. We might lose them on the way back. We will worry about that later, Daniel replied. He was sitting next to, both of them reviewing everything they knew about the. Tell me more about this relay station, Daniel said. How did we find it? Pulled up images on her tablet. The station was built into the ice of Europa, hidden beneath the frozen surface. It was discovered 30 years ago by accident when a mining team broke through into an ancient chamber. The station is not built, she explained. It is much older. Some species we have never identified created it millions of years ago, but many civilizations have used it over time. They left records there, messages, warnings for those who would come after them. And they left something there too. We found fragments of their language, but we never had a reason to look deeper. They were just another name in our databases. Now everything has changed. Daniel stared out the viewport at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the fleet was waiting, counting down the hours until they could destroy everything humanity had ever built. What if we find nothing? What if the evidence is lost? She did not answer for a long moment. Then we will have tried. That is all anyone can do. On the flagship, Archon Al stood before the great window of his command chamber. His 4 arms were folded behind his back as he watched the tiny lights of the human fleet in the distance. So small, so fragile, like all the others. A door opened behind him, and Sub-Commander entered. She was younger than Al, with lighter purple skin and eyes that held questions she knew better than to ask. "Supreme Commander, the human fleet has not moved," she reported. "They are holding position near their 3rd planet." "They are hopping for a miracle," Al said without turning around. "They always do. Every species believes they are special, that they will be the ones to resist the Dominion. They are always wrong." Hesitated before speaking again. "Commander, may I ask why we brought such a large fleet? The humans have no technology that could threaten us. A single battle group would be enough." Al turned slowly. His black eyes studied her face with dangerous interest. "You are asking questions, Sub-Commander. That is not your duty." "I apologize, Supreme Commander. I only wish to understand." Al walked toward her, his steps heavy on the metal floor. "This world sits near coordinates of historical significance, coordinates associated with a species that once challenged us. We must ensure no one ever discovers what they knew. This requires complete certainty, complete destruction if necessary." Nodded, but her eyes showed she wanted to ask more. She did not. She had heard stories about officers who asked too many questions about the forbidden topics. None of them served in the fleet anymore. "Return to your station," Al commanded. "When the time comes, you will do your duty." "Yes, Supreme Commander." 6 hours later, Daniel stood inside the ancient relay station on Europa. The chamber was vast and cold, filled with machines that had not operated in thousands of years. Ice covered everything, but the records remained preserved. "The section is this way," said, her breath forming clouds in the freezing air. "I came here once, years ago. I remember thinking how strange it was that such a peaceful species had left anything behind at all." They moved through narrow corridors carved from ice and stone. The walls were covered in writing from dozens of alien languages, messages left across millions of years, warnings of dangers that no longer existed, stories of civilizations turned to dust. Finally, they reached a small chamber filled with data crystals. Each one glowed faintly with internal light, preserved by technology beyond human understanding. "These are the records," whispered. "I never analyzed them properly. There was never any urgency." Daniel began scanning the crystals one by one. Most contained philosophical writings, observations about the nature of existence and the patterns of history. Beautiful but useless for saving Earth. Then he found one that was different. It was sealed with a marker he did not recognize, a symbol that looked like a broken chain. "Look at this." She examined the crystal carefully. "This is not like the others. This was meant to be hidden, protected." "Can you open it?" Worked for nearly an hour, using equipment they had brought and tools left behind by forgotten civilizations. Finally, the crystal hummed to life, and images began to appear in the air before them. Daniel saw but not the conquering empire he knew. These images showed a different time, 12 worlds united in peace, councils where representatives discussed philosophy and art, children playing in gardens under strange suns. "This is the before they became an empire," said softly. "They were not always conquerors." The images changed. They showed meetings in dark rooms, leaders speaking in whispers, and then an explosion. Ships attacking peaceful worlds, but the ships carried markings attacking cities. They attacked themselves, Daniel realized. They killed their own people and blamed it on other species. To justify military expansion, continued. To transform their federation into an empire. Every conquest since then has been built on this original lie. The crystal contained more. Communications between the conspirators, plans for the false attack, everything documented by the who had witnessed it all. Daniel looked at with hope burning in his eyes. This is it. This is what made them retreat, the threatened to reveal the truth. If the fleet sees this evidence, everything they believe about their civilization will collapse. Their entire history is a lie. Daniel carefully removed the crystal and held it like the most precious thing in the universe. Because right now it was. We need to get back to Earth, now. The transport ship shook violently as it raced back toward Earth. Shaw fought with the controls, his face covered in sweat. The engines are failing, he shouted. I told you I pushed them too hard. How much time do we have? Daniel asked, gripping his seat to stay upright. We will make it to Earth, barely, but landing might be rough. Held the data crystal against her chest, protecting it with her body. They had come too far to lose everything now. The ship groaned and shuddered, but it kept flying. In Geneva, Secretary General Laura Mitchell watched the countdown on her screen. 18 hours remained before the deadline. 18 hours before the end of everything. Any word from the research team? She asked her assistant. Their transport left Europa 4 hours ago. They reported finding something important, but communications have been spotty. Engine trouble. Laura closed her eyes and tried to stay calm. The fate of humanity depended on a damaged ship carrying 2 researchers and a piece of alien crystal. It seemed impossible. But then again, so did everything else about this situation. Commander Price entered the room with a grave expression. Secretary General, the fleet has begun moving into attack formation. They are not waiting for the deadline. Can Admiral Canton hold them off? For maybe an hour, maybe less. If they decide to attack early, we cannot stop them. Laura looked at the map showing Earth and the approaching Armada. 800 human ships against 12,000 alien warships. The numbers had not changed, but maybe, just maybe, the equation had. Tell George to keep them talking, she said, and pray that transport makes it in time. 14 hours later, Daniel's ship crashed into a landing field outside Geneva. The impact threw everyone forward, but the hull held together. Emergency crews rushed to pull them from the wreckage. Daniel emerged holding the data crystal above his head like a trophy. We found it, he shouted. Get us to the Secretary General, now. 30 minutes later, Daniel stood in the main command center, surrounded by Earth's most important leaders. The data crystal had been connected to the main display system, and everyone watched in stunned silence as the truth about the Empire was revealed. They saw the peaceful federation that existed 6,000 years ago. They watched the secret meetings where ambitious leaders planned their terrible deception. They witnessed the false flag attacks that killed millions of innocent citizens. And they understood how that original crime had been used to justify an empire built on conquest and lies. This is what the new explained. This is why they erased them from history. The foundation of their entire civilization is a lie. If their own people see this evidence, everything falls apart. Admiral Canton spoke through the communication link from his flagship. You want to broadcast this to the fleet, all of them. Every ship, Daniel confirmed. Every officer, every crew member. Let them see what their empire is really built on. Laura Mitchell studied the evidence carefully. If we do this, what happens to their empire might collapse into civil war. Billions could die. The room went quiet. Daniel had not thought about that. He had been so focused on saving Earth that he had not considered what this truth might do to themselves. Spoke carefully. We are not attacking them. We are only showing them the truth. What they do with that truth is their choice. And if they choose to destroy us anyway, asked, out of anger or fear, then we are no worse off than we are now, Daniel replied. At least this way we have a chance. Laura walked to the window and looked up at the sky. Somewhere beyond the blue atmosphere, the fleet was preparing to end human civilization. Every option was terrible. Surrender meant slavery. Fighting meant death. But this option, this truth, offered something different. We need to include more than just the evidence, she said slowly. We need to give them a choice, a reason to walk away. What do you mean? Asked. They just threatened to reveal the truth, but they did not offer the anything. They did not give them a way out that preserved their dignity. Laura turned to face the room. We will be different. We will show them the evidence, but we will also show them mercy. We will give them the chance to leave without shame. Daniel nodded slowly. We tell them we do not want to destroy their civilization. We just want to live. And if they leave peacefully, the secret dies with us. But if they attack, we broadcast this to every species in the galaxy, Laura continued. Their empire crumbles. Their children learn the truth. Everything they have built becomes meaningless. The room was silent as everyone absorbed the plan. It was dangerous. It was uncertain, but it was their only hope. Laura looked at the countdown. 6 hours remained. Prepare the broadcast, she ordered. Include all the evidence in our message. We send it on my command. Daniel began working with the communications team to prepare the transmission. Helped translate the evidence into languages that officers could understand. Every word mattered. Every image had to be perfect. Outside, the fleet moved closer. Weapons were charging. The deadline was approaching, and humanity's fate now rested on a message that would either save them or destroy them. 5 hours. 4 hours. 3. The broadcast was ready. Daniel looked at Laura Mitchell and nodded. We are prepared, Secretary General. Laura took a deep breath. The next few hours would determine whether humanity survived or became another forgotten species in the vast emptiness of space. Send it. The message traveled at the speed of light, reaching every ship in the Armada within seconds. 12,000 vessels received the same transmission at the same moment. On every bridge, every screen, every personal device, the truth about the Dominion began to play. Officers stopped what they were doing and stared. Soldiers put down their weapons and watched. Young crew members who had been taught to believe in the glory of their empire saw images that made no sense. How could their ancestors have attacked their own people? How could everything they believed be a lie? On the flagship, Archon Al watched with cold fury as his crew gathered around displays showing the evidence. He could see the confusion in their eyes, the doubt, the beginning of questions he had spent his entire career suppressing. Turn it off, he commanded. This is human propaganda. But the message continued. It could not be stopped because it was broadcasting from every human satellite, every relay station, every piece of communication equipment on Earth. The humans had made sure there was no way to silence them. Then came the human message itself. Laura Mitchell's face appeared on screen, her voice calm and clear. People of the Dominion, we do not wish to destroy you. We only wish to live. The evidence you have seen is real. It was preserved by the who witnessed your history and documented the truth. We found it in their archives. She paused, letting her words settle. You have a choice now. Leave our system peacefully, and this secret remains between us. We will not broadcast it to the galaxy. We will not use it to turn other species against you. Your empire can continue, and your children will never know what happened 6,000 years ago. The image changed to show the vastness of the galaxy, stars beyond counting. But if you attack Earth, we will send this evidence to every inhabited world we know, every species you have conquered, every civilization you threaten. They will all learn the truth. Your empire will collapse. Your legacy will be dust. And it will happen because you chose destruction when you could have chosen peace. Laura appeared again, her eyes steady and unafraid. We are giving you what the did not, a way out, a chance to preserve everything you have built. All you have to do is leave. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. Silence fell across the fleet. Officers looked at each other, searching for answers that no one could give. Some believed the evidence was fake. Others recognized the ancient markings and knew it was real. Arguments began on bridge after bridge. Sub-Commander stood outside Archon Al's command chamber, listening to the shouting inside. She had seen the evidence. She had recognized the symbols and the language from ancient texts she studied as a child. The humans were telling the truth. She entered the chamber without waiting for permission. Al turned to face her, his black eyes filled with rage. You dare enter without being summoned. Supreme Commander, the crews are demanding answers. Half our captains are refusing to continue the invasion. They want to know if the evidence is real. Al walked toward her slowly. And what do you believe, Sub-Commander? Held her ground. I believe the truth matters. I believe our people deserve to know what our empire was built upon. The truth, Al laughed bitterly. The truth is that our ancestors did what was necessary. They transformed a weak federation into the greatest power in the galaxy. Everything we have, everything we are, exists because they made the hard choice. They murdered their own people. They sacrificed some to save many. That is what leaders do. Al moved to his console and began preparing attack commands. The humans think they can threaten us with words. I will show them what the Dominion does to those who challenge us. If you attack, the evidence spreads everywhere. Other species will rise against us. Our own people will demand answers. The Empire will tear itself apart. Al stopped. His hands hovered over the controls. For a long moment he said nothing. I have served the Dominion for 200 years, he said quietly. I have conquered 37 worlds. I have always believed we were bringing order to chaos, civilization to barbarism. Now you tell me it was all based on a lie. Stepped closer. It does not have to end, Supreme Commander. The humans offered a way out. If we leave now, the secret remains buried. Our empire continues. Our people never learn the truth. And we let a primitive species defeat the Dominion without firing a shot. We let them survive. There is a difference. Al stood motionless for what felt like hours. Throughout the fleet, chaos continued. Some ships had already begun turning away from Earth. Others remained in attack formation, their crews divided and uncertain. Finally, Al reached his decision. He opened a channel to all ships. His voice carried across 12,000 vessels, heard by millions of soldiers. All ships withdraw. We are returning to Dominion space. This planet is no longer a target. The protests came immediately. Some commanders demanded the attack continue, but more voices supported the retreat. The evidence had done its work. Too many now knew the truth, and they were not willing to risk everything to destroy one small world. The fleet began to turn. One by one, ships moved away from Earth. The great armada that had come to conquer humanity was leaving without firing a single weapon. On Earth, people watched in disbelief as the red dots on their screens moved away from the planet. Cheering erupted in cities around the world. Tears of relief flowed from millions of eyes. In Geneva, Daniel Cooper stood beside, watching the retreat. Neither of them could believe what they had accomplished. "We did it," whispered. "We actually did it." Before the last ship departed, one final message came from Archon Al. "You have proven yourselves worthy of survival, humans, but know this. We will be watching, and if you ever share what you know, we will return. There will be no warning next time." The transmission ended, and the fleet vanished into hyperspace. Laura Mitchell addressed the world that night. She spoke of courage, of hope, of the power of truth against impossible odds. She warned that the threat was not gone forever, only delayed. Humanity needed to grow stronger, to reach further into the stars, to build alliances with other species. Daniel listened from his station, exhausted but proud. They had won not through weapons or war, but through something far more powerful. They had found the truth and used it wisely. They had offered mercy when they could have demanded surrender. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. The stars still burned in the night sky, full of dangers and wonders beyond counting. But Earth remained. And somewhere out there, other species who had suffered under them were waiting to hear the truth that could set them free. Humanity's story was just beginning.